Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this panel discussion titled Defending the Grid, Uniting Forces to Protect Critical Infrastructure. Moderated by Lara Habib, Senior Business News Presenter, BIA. Our panelists are Miguel Ángel Cañada, Head of Unit and National Coordination Center, Spanish National Cybersecurity Institute, Rohit Unnikrishnan, Senior President of Product Management, Trellix, Hosam A, Policies and Regulations, Deputy Governor, National Cybersecurity Authority, Saudi Arabia.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Thank you all for being here. Good afternoon. It's a privilege to be back on stage to talk about protecting the infrastructure that keeps the world running. From the power that lights our homes to the systems that move planes, goods, and money. Just in the past year, we've seen airports across Europe thrown into chaos, hackers opening a floodgate at a dam in Norway, and the city of St. Paul in the United States brought to a standstill by ransomware. And these are just a few stories. What's the bigger picture? Between January 2023 and January 2024, there were more than 450 million cyber attacks on critical infrastructure worldwide. That translates to 30 attacks every single second. And their main targets are energy grids, hospitals, and banks. So the message is clear. The attackers are getting faster, smarter, and bolder, and our defenses and our cooperation need to keep up. So to discuss this and more, please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists. Thank you all for being with us. So Miguel Ángel, let me start this conversation with you. And we know that cyber attacks in Spain are on. What can you tell us about the nature of these cyber attacks on the critical infrastructure? How did it evolve in the past few years?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure for the Spanish National Cybersecurity Institute to be here again in this huge event, probably one of the biggest worldwide, and for sure a great opportunity to share our knowledge and to learn a lot about the experience of other countries. You mentioned really well, critical infrastructure are probably one of the biggest target of cyber criminal structures. We are seeing in the last year an increase of these attacks. You mentioned the energy sector, you mentioned financial sector. We also detected that very important rise of the attacks to the logistic and transport sector. Probably the critical infrastructure, they are, they have the ability, they have the resources, the biggest entity that are handling these sectors to handle the cyber attacks. We did a big problem in the supply chain. Definitely, there are a lot of SMEs, a lot of companies working for these sectors, and here we have a big problem, or at least we have problems in the second level, and definitely something that we have to protect. At the European level, as you might know, there are one directive, the NIS2 directive, that is increasing the protection of these critical sectors, but unfortunately, we are going to be in a scenario where the attacks to critical infrastructure are going to be growing a lot. Actually, this year, and we don't consolidate data until the end of the year, but we are seeing an increase of these attacks in all the critical infrastructure, but specifically in the logistics transport sector. So I'm afraid that there's something that we are going to be working on, and definitely this is a very big problem at the European level.
In the energy sector in particular, we know that Europe witnessed one of the largest blackouts in its history. It included Spain, and it included investigations concluded that that was not a cyber attack. However, this was unprecedented. Within seconds, Europe lost around 50 gigawatts of power. So what lessons does this teach us about the vulnerability of the infrastructure?
Well, this is an example of the thing I was saying before. And that's the opportunity to talk about the second part of the security resilience. Everybody can understand that if you have one person or one criminal organization attacking you, you have to create the capabilities to protect yourself about that. But there are another important part, and this is something that also learned from that you, which is the industrial part of cybersecurity. I remember last year also it was this huge problem with this cybersecurity company shut down a lot of systems and create a big problem with the update of the software. So there's no attack in that part. There's nobody attacking your system. It's an industrial problem. And probably the economic impact of this kind of situation will be biggest than the economic impact that you have when someone is attacking you. So for very important to consider the criminal of cybersecurity, I mean the cyber crime, but also component of the industrial cybersecurity. And that situation that you mentioned before is giving us the opportunity to learn about how the industrial part are covered. So we are working on that a lot. We are in our agency department to create, to learn, and to build capabilities on the industrial side. We are working with different actors of the sectors in the different verticals that we are working on, and the that is knowledge and specific capabilities for the different sectors. And this that probably in the coming year is going to be a part of our activities, because of course cybercrime will be a priority, but vulnerability, this industrial is going to be also a very important part of our job regarding or due to very important economic impact that can suffer when you have these kind of problems.
Thank you. Before hearing the opinion of security providers, I want to hear your thoughts, Hosam, because according to the report, the Middle East was fourth region globally in terms of in 2024. It now accounts for 1% of the attacks. This compares to 10% in 2023, and unfortunately, UAE and Saudi are the most attacked countries in the region. So what can you tell us about the type of attacks that you are getting on your critical infrastructure?
In terms of attacks, well, I just want to welcome everybody that came from outside Saudi to your second home, which is Riyadh, and the rest of Saudi Arabia is really wonderful to explore and to find more about. And it's wonderful to get to know all of you as well. And in terms of these cyber and the way that this trend is moving and focus on the Middle East, I think one of the things that malicious actors out, they have a drive for finding a return on their investment. So they look for any type of disruption that could give them a return. And usually they use, for example, ransomware to get more of that. In terms of the attacks that you possibly those are types of service attacks where they want to interrupt the services that are happening within the UAE, given the economies of and the decreased reliance on oil, but still know that targeting these manufacturing facilities or refineries is something that they may find a return on. Alhamdulillah, we have quite a highly stable environment. I would use, I think, in this conference, highly stable and well-established defenses across the kingdom. The NCA has established, the royal decree was established with this company site, which I believe you are aware of. And
Of course.
the key aspect of that is that we have this kind of centralized kind of system where we're able to operate the governing components of strategy and policy, and as well as the operational aspect at the national level. And then we have all the entities within the kingdom. They're aligned with the NCAs and the policies and the regulations that we use. So there is a level of understanding the NCA has of the entities and the defenses that we focus on within any of the industries within the kingdom. So through the central model, it's not fully central. We have a central component, and then there are distributed. And like my colleagues in previous talks mentioned, that the organization is the owner of the risks. This is something in our regulations, it's always. However, cyberspace is quite elusive or intangible, so we also get involved and to make sure that there's a high level of confidence in the security of our environment.
And probably this is the results of the heavy investments that Saudi Arabia did, especially after its critical infrastructure was attacked. Let's not forget the
Yes.
2012 attack on Aramco.
Yes.
Rohit, let me move to you. And you're a global private cybersecurity company, and you deal with so many different sectors and governments. So what are the trends that we are seeing?
Well, thank you for having us here, and it's great to be on such a global forum here in Saudi Arabia. Your
Microphone. I think your microphone is.
It's on, yes.
Yes, it's on. Can you
Yes,
with your
absolutely.
voice?
So I was just saying thank you for having us here, and thank you for actually hosting such a forum. Back to your question, the emerging trends that we are seeing, and to the numbers that you actually highlighted in the beginning, the trend is taking for sure. What we are seeing is very focused precision attacks that are now being spread across different sectors and segments. If you look back about 7 years ago, the focus was primarily on health and associated entities within the healthcare segment, 7 to 8 years ago. We started seeing it focus on other segments of critical infrastructure. Now it's basically open forum for any segment within the critical infrastructure. And because of the fact that there is focus, position, and targeted against each and every organization on the planet in these segments, it has become very, very imperative that we also understand the motivation purely from a financial and economic point of view, as well as from a nation-state point of view. Because one of the other trends that we have seen is purely the motivation from economic perspective to nation-state perspective has actually increased. You've seen criminal enterprises now morphing their services to align with nation-state motivations as well. And that is something that has happened quite significantly in the last couple of years, recent years.
And where does AI come into the picture? Some might say when it comes to any technology, it passes through 3 phases. The first phase is proof of concept,
Yes.
and the second phase is the pilot mode, and then there's the production mode. When we are not mostly in that production mode, so the attacks will intensify as more and more we will become into this adoption and production. What are your thoughts on that?
AI is yet again another avenue. There is risks and there's advantages to it as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the speed and focus and precision is actually enabled by AI. And I'm not talking about it as a direct artifact used in the attacks, but a evolution of data analysis at scale. For example, today I can use AI to conduct targeted research on a specific member or of an organization. I effectively go and analyze a specific component within a critical infrastructure and identify all the potential libraries, software components utilized, what potential exploits could be developed. All of this is now automated. So the barrier to entry for the actors is coming down significantly. Right? So with this level of and with this level of knowledge that is actually distributed across, it could be used for potential and definitely for bad as well, as we have seen recently. That makes it all the more harder for defenders to actually act in a unilateral, siloed capacity. It has to be a coordinated, united attempt to actually defend against such sophisticated attacks as they keep evolving. And AI definitely has a huge part to play in the defense aspect, as much as it is being used in the attack scenarios as well.
Hosam, briefly, because I want to discuss this point with you. I know Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest countries in the region, but worldwide, investing in AI. You are building smart cities. So how much critical infrastructure more exposed now to cyber attacks?
And this is a very good question. And I told you don't trick questions, but that one. And in terms of this one, I think the key things that we have in Saudi, alhamdulillah, we have where we look into the future in terms of the regulatory side. And one of the things that we have seen a long time ago, not a long time ago, but I think since the initiation of this LLM use within AI and all of that, and we began on regulations on that side of things. We're engaged with critical infrastructure entities. So within our work, as I said, we're creating all of this regulatory body of work, as well as ensuring that entities are in compliance with them. So we have the arm of SITE that goes and does the assurance, and the NCA is the one that's producing it. It is the most ideal model, but it is part of the evolution, and it's the most effective way that it's been recognized globally in different platforms that this approach had allowed Saudi to be able to ensure critical infrastructure is protected up to a comfortable level or up to a level that the country can stand behind and feel comfortable with confronting types of threats that we may face. And at the same time, we continue to evolve our regulations and engage with these critical infrastructure and with the OT providers as well to ensure that our infrastructure is not exposed to these threats, and we keep this cyberspace of Saudi and the region. We're also engaged with the GCC countries. We're engaged with the Arab League. There is a ministerial committee at the level of the GCC as well as the Arab League and on cybersecurity. And this is also in collaboration. So these committees are collaborating with global entities as well, CISA and ESA and other entities within Asia as well. So all of that, it is cyberspace that's one all across.
Briefly, please, the collaboration is about what, sharing intelligence, or is it about drills in case something happens to your infrastructure?
All of those. So we have a platform for the GCC. We've established a platform. It's been running for 4 years now. We're engaged with the different countries and the Gulf cooperation. And we're able to now conduct exercises. We've done 4 exercises up to now. And we have threat intelligence. So any type of threat that they may have, or we have, or others may have, we share into this platform that was dedicated, and it is dedicated to this type of work. So it allowed us to do that. And then yesterday, we just had the second ministerial committee, Arab League, of the ministers of cybersecurity, and it was great. And there we got the strategy for the cybersecurity work to be approved, and now the and the planning and the activities to be kicked off. And all of that has been done within the GCC side. And now we're working on the Arab League in concert with the other countries as well. We're still engaged with all these other countries. And formally now the GCC has an engagement directly with the European Union. So there is a very close alignment with them as well as the US.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miguel, before I ask you about the collaborations that you do as an EU entity, I want to zoom in on incidents that I mentioned in the introduction, and that is what's happening in the airports in Europe. We know that drones affected the airport activity in Copenhagen and in Oslo. We know that attack on the check-in systems at airports in the UK, in Brussels, and also in Germany affected also flights. Some might argue that in order to protect the airport systems, this requires additional investments, and this is very costly, and this is also will take time compared to the attacks. So how worried are you about the vulnerability of the airports in Europe?
Well, let me take two ways to answer the question. First one is, let me tell you a story. Everybody know about one book of Carol Lewis, it's Alice in Wonderland. There's a book of this author is Alice Through the Mirror, and there's a character here, the Red Queen, that is always running. It's always running, and everybody asks the Queen, why are you? She always said, I always running because I want to keep in the same place. That's what happened with cybersecurity. We need to run a lot just to reach the cyber criminals. And you say the investment to this is very high, and it's correct, but the cost of is bigger. So in the last 3 years, we have been investing half of our budget in research and development on cybersecurity, because as my colleagues mentioned, it's important to reach the capabilities of the cyber criminals that they are using the frontier technologies. We need to make sure that we at least match the efforts that they are doing in this frontier technology. That's one answer. The second one is, again, supply chain. This incident and you report and others related with that are precisely with the supply chain. And we have to know that the scenario has changed. And it's not going to be the same. So unfortunately, multilateralism is not in the moment, but that's is pushing us to increase the cooperation. Because we don't have the tools that we really has, we don't have the budget to reach or to match the efforts of the cyber criminals. Definitely, we have to make sure that we are cooperating with the right people. And this forum is one example of that. You can find here a lot of partners that are willing, that are doing the same, that are reaching the same goals that you are trying to reach. So it's important to increase that part, but definitely you have to invest, and we truly believe on that. We are being a lot in this research on frontier technologies to make sure that we can at least have the same capabilities that the people on the side are.
Hackers, they don't need passports, right?
Exactly.
So security shouldn't stop at a country's border.
In the case of the European Union, is a specific big problem with that, because we are really in regulation. We are the regulation. I don't know if this is good or bad, but it's a reality. We need to change our mindset and invest more on technology from these frontier technologies. But
unfortunately, our time. But I have one more question for you all. What keeps you up at night when you think about the security of critical infrastructure? Rohit.
That's a loaded question. I think it's all the more imperative, like earlier, that we don't treat this as a unilateral problem. It's a global issue at hand. It's going to become more pervasive as hackers' sophistication increases, particularly with the advent of AI. And there are waves of AI or any technology, like you mentioned. We are probably witnessing the second at this point, and very soon moving into the third. At which point, the threat surface is going to be very vast, and it's going to have cascading effects across boundaries as well. Infrastructure that is actually being impacted in one country or one continent will have cascading financial, economic, socio-economic, political impact across the globe. In order for us to actually be able to build resiliency against that, we have to start putting the frameworks, the cooperation and the policies, uniting all the organizations at a fundamental level starting now.
Thank you. Hosam, what keeps you up at night?
I think one of the things that I'd say are a concern likely to a lot of us is that, especially when you're working in a regulator, is that an organization may get impacted with a cyber attack, especially from a critical infrastructure side of things. So we keep pushing and pushing and making sure that they don't. But the bigger impact is that at the national level, at any countries, on the network of any country, that these critical infrastructure entities, and we've seen them in the past where it occurred, where the line company gets impacted or an electricity company gets hacked. And the concern is that if this impact moves into other entities that this critical infrastructure is existing within, this contagion effect will be a major impact. And that's things that we always work on, making sure that if it happens that an entity gets impacted, that there are measures taken to ensure that this does not go out to other entities. And supply chain, and the third parties that are engaged with entities, as my colleague had mentioned, they're one of the aspects of that exposure, but there are other ways that this effect could happen, and this is one of my main concerns, yes.
Thank you. Miguel Ángel.
I have to say I sleep very well, but,
Lucky.
no, it's easy to recovery. There are two kinds of companies or entities. People that suffer an attack, and the entity that will suffer an attack. Because it's really, let me say, easy to receive. Sometimes you have this problem. But important part, recovery for the critical infrastructure. And that's where we think that we have to make more efforts now. Because it's the problem when you have this kind of attack on critical infrastructure is that you have no ability to escape from that. So if you invest in make sure that you can recover easy for that, and then you solve the problem in parallel, I think I will sleep very, very well. so that's, for me, the key is recovery, the recovery ability.
Thank you all for sharing your valuable insights today, and thank you for your attention.